Maxwell Reid's hands trembled as he stared at the crumpled birth certificate he'd found hidden in his late wife's belongings. 5 years a widower, 5 years raising his daughter alone in his penthouse overlooking Central Park, and only now on Christmas Eve did he discover the truth: Emma wasn't his biological child. The revelation hit him like a physical blow as snow fell outside his window. Everything he thought he knew about his family was a lie, and tomorrow morning, he would have to face his daughter's innocent eyes knowing this secret lay between them. The sound of his security system pinging drew his attention to the monitors. In the alley behind his building's restaurant, a woman in tattered clothes was digging frantically through the dumpsters. Maxwell's finger hovered over the button to alert security when he noticed something that stopped him cold. Around her neck hung a locket identical to the one his wife had been buried with, a one-of-a-kind piece he'd commissioned for their anniversary. His heart raced as he grabbed his coat. If this homeless woman had his wife's locket, what other secrets might she hold about the family he thought he knew? The bitter December wind cut through Maxwell's cashmere coat as he approached the woman. She couldn't be more than 30, though hardship had etched premature lines around her eyes. When she saw him, she clutched something protectively to her chest, not food, but a worn photograph. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion, "I'm not stealing. I just need to find something before Christmas morning." The locket gleamed in the security light, and when Maxwell pointed to it, asking where she'd gotten it, the woman's eyes widened with recognition. "You're him," she gasped. "You're Maxwell Reid." Before he could respond, she collapsed into the snow. Maxwell carried the unconscious woman into his penthouse, against every rational thought. His housekeeper gasped but helped him settle her on the guest room bed. As they removed her threadbare coat, a folded paper fell from her pocket, a newspaper clipping about Maxwell's tech company with his family photo circled. The woman stirred, her eyes fluttering open to meet his. "My name is Sarah," she whispered. "And I think your wife was my sister." The revelation struck Maxwell like lightning. His wife had always claimed to be an only child, orphaned young. Yet here was this woman, with the same unusual amber eyes, the same locket, and a story that threatened to unravel everything. Sarah explained between sobs that she'd been searching for her sister for years, only discovering after her death that she'd married a billionaire. "I never wanted your money," she insisted, her hands shaking. "I just wanted to know why she pretended I didn't exist. Why she left me behind in foster care while she lived in this palace." As Christmas Eve deepened into night, Maxwell found himself sharing his discovery about Emma's parentage. Sarah's face went pale. "That's why I came," she whispered. "There's something you need to know before morning." She reached for her tattered backpack and pulled out a bundle of letters, correspondence between his wife and someone whose name had been carefully removed. "Your wife didn't betray you," Sarah said, her voice barely audible. "Emma is my daughter. I was 17, homeless, addicted. My sister took her to give her a better life, made you believe Emma was yours because she couldn't have children. She was protecting both of us." Maxwell felt the room spin. Emma, the center of his world, was actually his niece by marriage? The child of this broken woman before him? He thought of Emma sleeping peacefully down the hall, her Christmas list to Santa asking only for someone to keep Daddy company so he's not lonely anymore. The timing of this revelation seemed too cruel, too perfect. "Why now?" he demanded, anger finally breaking through his shock. "Why come on Christmas Eve after 5 years?" Sarah's answer froze him in place. "Because I'm dying. The doctors gave me until New Year's. I just wanted to see her face once before I go." The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight as Maxwell made a decision that would change all their lives. "Stay," he said simply. "Stay for Christmas. Meet your daughter." Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she clutched the locket. "I can't disrupt her life. I just wanted to know she was loved." Maxwell took her hand, this stranger who was somehow family. "Emma deserves to know where she comes from. And no child should lose a mother twice. Dawn broke over New York City as Emma padded into the living room in her reindeer pajamas, stopping short at the sight of the strange woman sitting beside her father. "Emma," Maxwell said gently, "I have a very special Christmas present for you this year. This is your Aunt Sarah." The little girl tilted her head curiously, studying Sarah's amber eyes so like her own. "Are you my Christmas miracle?" she asked innocently. "Daddy told me if I wished hard enough, we wouldn't be alone anymore." Sarah moved into the guest room, temporarily, though weeks passed with no mention of her leaving. Maxwell arranged the best medical care, treatments that offered hope where there had been none. As winter melted into spring, something unexpected blossomed between the billionaire and the woman who had once been digging through his trash. Not just gratitude or obligation, but genuine connection. They were two broken people united by love for the same child, healing each other in ways neither thought possible. On a warm evening in May, as Emma slept upstairs, Sarah confessed her deepest fear. "I'm getting better, but I'm still the same person who gave up her child. I don't deserve this second chance." Maxwell took her hands, callous now from the garden she'd planted on his terrace rather than from life on the streets. "We've all made impossible choices," he said. "But Emma needs you. And," he added softly, "so do I." The revelation that had seemed so devastating on Christmas Eve had become the foundation for something beautiful. Maxwell realized that family wasn't defined by blood or birth certificates, but by the people who choose to stay, who choose to love despite the pain and complications. As Sarah's health improved, so did the bond between them, evolving from cautious allies to something neither dared name. 1 year after that fateful Christmas Eve, Maxwell stood in the same spot where he'd first seen Sarah digging through the trash. Now transformed into a community garden that served the homeless, it represented everything that had changed. Sarah approached, no longer gaunt and desperate but glowing with health and purpose. "Emma's asking if we can make this an annual tradition," she said, gesturing to the volunteers serving Christmas dinner. "She says it's important to remember where our story began." Maxwell pulled a small box from his pocket inside, a locket that matched the one Sarah wore, but with space for 3 photos instead of 2. "I think some stories are just beginning," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "If you're willing to write the next chapters with us." As snow began to fall around them, Sarah's answer came not in words but in the kiss that promised a lifetime of Christmas mornings together. Their journey from strangers to family reminded everyone who heard it that life's most precious gifts often come in unexpected packages. Sometimes, the people we're meant to love are found in the most unlikely places, even digging through trash on Christmas Eve. If this story touched your heart, remember that second chances and unexpected connections happen every day. Share your own stories of hope and transformation in the comments below, and subscribe for more reminders that even what Maxwell couldn't have anticipated was how quickly Emma would bond with Sarah. Within days, they were inseparable, the little girl instinctively drawn to the woman who shared her laugh, her artistic talent, and the tiny dimple that appeared on their left cheeks when they smiled. One evening, Maxwell found them huddled together on Emma's bed, Sarah teaching her to sketch butterflies. "She draws just like you used to," he said later that night, showing Sarah his wife's old sketchbooks. "It's in her blood." The words hung between them, an acknowledgement of truths still too fragile to fully discuss. The first major complication arose 3 weeks after Christmas when Maxwell's former mother-in-law made an unexpected visit. Eleanor Harrington had never approved of her daughter's marriage to a new money tech entrepreneur, and her disdain only deepened when she spotted Sarah in the kitchen, helping Emma with breakfast. "Who is this person?" she demanded, eyeing Sarah's second-hand clothes. Before Maxwell could intervene, Emma proudly announced, "This is my Aunt Sarah. She's Mommy's sister." Eleanor's face drained of color. "That's impossible," she whispered. "My daughter was an only child." The silence that followed was deafening. Later, behind closed doors, Eleanor revealed the devastating truth. Sarah wasn't lying about being related to Maxwell's wife, but the relationship was far more complicated than either had imagined. "Your wife wasn't my biological daughter, Eleanor," confessed, her aristocratic composure finally cracking. "We adopted her from a troubled home when she was 4. There was a younger sister we couldn't take. That must be Sarah. We were sworn to secrecy as part of the adoption." Maxwell felt the ground shift beneath him once again. "So you separated sisters? And never told your daughter she was adopted?" Eleanor's eyes hardened. "We gave her everything. A perfect life. Why taint it with a past better forgotten?" That night, after Eleanor left and Emma was asleep, Maxwell found Sarah on the terrace, staring at the city lights. "I remember her," Sarah said quietly. "I was only 2 when they took her, but I remember her promising to come back for me. I waited at that window every day for years." Maxwell watched a single tear trace down her cheek. "She did look for you," he said, showing her a hidden folder on his laptop. Search records, private investigator reports, all dating back to before their marriage. "She never stopped looking. But the adoption records were sealed, and your name had been changed in foster care." Sarah's shoulders shook with silent sobs as decades of abandonment and betrayal transformed into something else. The knowledge that she had been loved, had been searched for, all along. The medical treatments were brutal. Some days, Sarah couldn't get out of bed, her body ravaged by the aggressive therapy meant to save her life. On those darkest days, Emma would climb carefully beside her, reading stories or simply holding her hand. Maxwell would find them like that, 2 pieces of a puzzle finally united, and feel both heartbreak and hope. One particularly difficult evening, after Emma had fallen asleep, Sarah whispered, "If I don't make it, promise me you'll tell her the truth someday. That I wanted her. That giving her up was the hardest thing I've ever done." Maxwell took her frail hand in his. "You're going to tell her yourself," he insisted. "We're fighting this together." Spring brought unexpected news. Sarah's cancer was in remission. The doctors were cautiously optimistic, using words like miraculous and unprecedented. That same week, Maxwell's company faced a hostile takeover attempt, forcing him to work around the clock. He returned home exhausted one evening to find Sarah and Emma dancing in the kitchen, flour covering their clothes as they attempted to bake cookies. For the first time since his wife's death, the penthouse felt like a home again. Sarah caught his eye and smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes, and something shifted in Maxwell's heart. This woman who had entered their lives like a whirlwind was becoming essential to his happiness in ways that terrified him. The media eventually caught wind of Sarah's presence. "Billionaire's mystery woman," screamed the tabloid headlines, followed by unflattering photos and speculation about her past. Sarah's history of addiction and homelessness became public fodder, with particularly vicious articles suggesting she was conning Maxwell for his fortune. The day the worst story broke, Maxwell found Sarah packing her meager belongings. "I won't let them hurt Emma with these stories," she said, her voice breaking. "Or damage your reputation." Maxwell took the suitcase from her hands. "My reputation?" he asked incredulously. "Sarah, do you know what my life was before you came? Empty. Hollow. Just work and more work, trying to fill the void. You and Emma, you're what matters. Not what some tabloid thinks." That night, after putting Emma to bed, Maxwell made a decision. He called a press conference for the following morning, something he'd avoided for years. With Sarah reluctantly by his side, he faced the cameras. "5 months ago, this woman came into our lives and changed everything," he began, his voice steady. "She is family, my late wife's sister, separated by adoption, and Emma's biological mother, who made the selfless choice to give her daughter a better life when she couldn't provide one." The reporters erupted with questions, but Maxwell raised his hand. "Sarah has shown more courage, integrity, and love than anyone I've ever known. She's fought cancer, homelessness, and addiction and one. If you want a story, write about that. Write about second chances and the family we're building. As cameras flashed, he took Sarah's hand, a public declaration that she belonged by his side. Summer brought healing. Sarah's strength returned, and with it, a newfound purpose. She started a foundation using part of Maxwell's fortune, creating transitional housing for homeless women with children. No mother should have to choose between keeping her child and giving that child a decent life, she explained at the opening ceremony, Emma proudly holding her hand. Maxwell watched from the sidelines, amazed by her transformation from the desperate woman in the alley to this confident force for change. That evening, as they walked through Central Park, Emma ran ahead to feed the ducks, and Sarah turned to him with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said simply, "for giving me my life back." Maxwell shook his head. "You did that yourself. I just gave you a place to heal." Their hands found each other's, fingers intertwining naturally, neither acknowledging the electricity of the touch. The first time Maxwell kissed Sarah was on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, nothing special about the day except that he couldn't wait any longer. They'd been arguing about something trivial, whether Emma needed a tutor or just more patience with math, when suddenly the tension between them shifted from frustration to something else entirely. "I'm falling in love with you," he admitted, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "And it terrifies me." Sarah froze, her eyes wide with vulnerability. "It should terrify you," she whispered. "I'm still broken in so many ways." Maxwell touched her cheek gently. "Then we'll be broken together." When their lips met, it felt like coming home, complicated. Imperfect, but exactly right. Their story wasn't a fairy tale. There were setbacks: Sarah's health scare in the fall, Emma's confusion about exactly how to define their family, the continued disapproval from Eleanor and Maxwell's upper-crust social circle. But through it all, they built something stronger than the perfect facade Maxwell had maintained for years. They built truth. The day Maxwell proposed wasn't planned or perfect. They were at the community garden, Sarah covered in dirt from planting winter vegetables with formerly homeless volunteers, when he simply knew he couldn't imagine another day without making her officially his. The ring was his grandmother's, not ostentatious like the one he'd given his first wife, but worn with love through generations. Sarah's hands trembled as she accepted, dirt under her fingernails, tears streaming down her face. "Are you sure?" she asked. "A year ago I was digging through your trash." Maxwell laughed, his heart fuller than he'd ever thought possible. "And finding you there was the best thing that ever happened to me." If this story has moved you, remember that transformation is possible for anyone. The woman digging through trash today might be tomorrow's inspiration. She just needs someone to see her potential. Like and subscribe to hear more stories of hope reborn from the darkest circumstances, and share your own moments of unexpected grace in the comments below. Their wedding was nothing like Maxwell's first. No society photographers, no 500-person guest list, no ice sculptures or champagne fountains. Instead, they gathered in the community garden on a crisp autumn day, surrounded by only those who truly mattered. Emma served as both flower girl and ring bearer, beaming with pride as she walked down the makeshift aisle. The guests were an unlikely assembly: residents from Sarah's transitional housing program, Maxwell's closest business associates, and a handful of friends who'd stood by them through the tumultuous year. Sarah wore a simple cream dress that highlighted her now healthy glow, and around her neck, the locket that had first connected them. When they exchanged vows, Maxwell's voice broke as he promised to love her, not despite our broken paths, but because of them, because they led us to each. The media coverage was inevitable, but different this time. "Billionaire finds love and purpose," read one headline, accompanied by a photo of the three of them planting trees at the garden. Sarah's foundation had expanded to 3 locations across the city, each offering not just housing but job training, addiction counseling, and childcare that allowed mothers to keep their families intact while rebuilding their lives. Maxwell had shifted his company's focus to developing affordable technology for underserved communities and establishing a hiring program specifically for people transitioning from homelessness. Their story had ripple effects neither could have anticipated, inspiring other wealthy individuals to look beyond charity galas to direct, meaningful action. Emma's adjustment to the new reality of her family continued to have challenges. One night, 6 months after the wedding, she crawled into their bed in tears. "If Sarah is my real mom," she asked, her voice small, "does that mean my other mommy didn't want me?" The question pierced both their hearts. Sarah gathered Emma into her arms, choosing her words carefully. "Your mother loved you more than anything in this world," she said. "She gave you the stable home I couldn't provide then, and she chose the best father any child could have. Love isn't divided, Emma, it multiplies. You have been blessed with 2 mothers who would do anything for you." Later, Maxwell found them looking through photo albums together, Sarah helping Emma see the similarities between herself and the mother she barely remembered. Their first Christmas as an official family, they started a new tradition. Instead of lavish gifts and exclusive parties, they served dinner at a homeless shelter, the same one where Sarah had once sought refuge. As they ladled soup and handed out warm clothing, Emma noticed a young woman huddled in the corner, a small child clutched to her chest, both thin and frightened. Without hesitation, Emma approached them with a plate of food and her brightest smile. Maxwell and Sarah watched their daughter, this remarkable child who had united them, extend the same compassion that had transformed their own lives. That night, the young mother and her son became the first residents of their newest transitional home, beginning their own journey toward healing. The following spring brought another miracle, one the doctors had said was virtually impossible given Sarah's medical history. The pregnancy was high risk, each week a victory, each ultrasound a moment to hold their breath. Emma appointed herself guardian of her mother's health, bringing herbal teas and reading to Sarah's growing belly. Maxwell found himself awake at night, one hand resting on Sarah's stomach, terrified of another loss yet filled with inexplicable hope. When their son was born healthy, strong, and with Sarah's amber eyes, they named him Phoenix. From the ashes, Sarah whispered as she held him for the first time. Maxwell and Emma crowded close. "Our family rose from the ashes." 5 years to the day after finding Sarah in that alley, Maxwell stood in his office, looking out at the city lights. So much had changed: his priorities, his company, his understanding of what truly mattered. The door opened quietly, and Sarah entered with Phoenix on her hip, Emma skipping ahead. "We thought we'd surprise you for lunch," Sarah said, setting down their son, who immediately toddled toward the toys Maxwell kept in the corner. Emma climbed onto his desk chair, spinning in circles as she recounted her morning at school. Maxwell pulled Sarah close, breathing in the scent of her hair, no longer the desperate woman from the streets, but his partner, his love, his family's heart. "Do you ever think about how differently things could have turned out?" he asked that night as they lay in bed, the children asleep down the hall. "If I hadn't looked at the security monitor at that exact moment? If you hadn't been wearing that locket?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest. "I think some souls are meant to find each other," she finally said. "Not because it's easy or perfect, but because they need each other to become whole." Maxwell thought about the birth certificate he'd found that Christmas Eve, the document that had shattered his world and ultimately rebuilt it stronger. "From trash to treasure," he murmured, kissing her forehead. "Our unlikely story." Their journey continued to inspire others. The foundation expanded nationally, their model of comprehensive support for vulnerable families replicated in cities across the country. Emma grew into a compassionate teenager who volunteered weekends at the centers, her natural ability to connect with children who'd experienced trauma revealing her future path. Phoenix thrived, showing his father's analytical mind and his mother's artistic spirit. And Maxwell and Sarah remained each other's anchors, 2 people who had seen each other at their most broken and chosen to love anyway. On the 10th anniversary of their meeting, they returned to the alley where it all began. Now transformed into a beautiful garden with a small plaque commemorating their story, it served as a reminder that hope can be found in the darkest places. Sarah knelt to plant winter flowers, her hands no longer desperate but purposeful. Maxwell watched her, this woman who had changed everything, and felt overwhelming gratitude. "Ready to go home?" he asked, extending his hand. Sarah smiled up at him, taking his hand and rising to her feet. "I am home," she said simply. "Wherever you and the children are, that's home." Their story reminds us that life's most precious gifts often come disguised as our greatest challenges. The woman digging through trash on Christmas Eve became a billionaire's greatest blessing, not because of a fairy tale ending, but because two broken people chose to see value where others saw only damage. If their journey has touched your heart, remember that transformation is possible for anyone, including you. Subscribe to hear more stories that restore faith in second chances, and share this one with someone who might need to believe in miracles this Christmas season.